On the spiritual journey, we often find ourselves in a constant search, seeking enlightenment, inner peace, and connection with the divine. Paradoxically, this relentless pursuit can be the very obstacle preventing us from finding what we seek. Imagine your consciousness as a clear, still lake. Every search, every desire is like a stone thrown into the water, creating ripples that distort the surface. The more we seek, the more agitated the waters become, obscuring the truth that lies in the depths. Ancient wisdom teaches us that what we seek is already within us. The kingdom of heaven, as the mystics say, is not a distant place, but a state of consciousness accessible here and now. Our external quest is merely a reflection of the soul's longing to recognize its own divine nature. Today, we will explore a profound paradox. The less we seek externally, the more we discover internally. This is not just a philosophical idea, but an experiential truth that can radically transform your spiritual journey and self-awareness. Prepare for a journey of self-discovery that begins exactly where you are, in the eternal present, the only place where true transformation can occur. The trap of the more mentality. On the spiritual path, we often encounter a subtle trap, the belief that we need to accumulate more experiences, more knowledge, and more practices to attain enlightenment. This more mentality in spirituality mirrors the materialistic society we live in, merely transferred to the realm of inner seeking. Many spiritual seekers fall into this trap, collecting meditation techniques, attending endless retreats, and reading an infinite number of books on spirituality. There is an eagerness for transcendental experiences, altered states of consciousness, and divine manifestations. While well-intentioned, this pursuit can become an obstacle to genuine spiritual growth. The ego, in its cunning nature, often hijacks the spiritual journey, turning it into yet another arena for self-affirmation. It creates an identity of the spiritual seeker. We compare our progress with others, take pride in our practices or mystical experiences, yet this comparison and pride are the very opposites of true spiritual growth. The truth is that authentic spirituality is not about accumulation, but about shedding layers. It's not about adding more to our lives, but about removing the veils that obscure our true nature. As Zen master Shunryu Suzuki said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." This more mentality disconnects us from the wisdom inherent in the present moment. We become so focused on reaching a future state of enlightenment that we miss the opportunity to awaken to reality as it is, here and now. It's as if we are constantly looking toward the horizon, failing to realize that we are already standing on sacred ground. True self-knowledge does not come from accumulating information about the self, but from directly and impartially observing who we are in each moment. It's not something we attain through effort, but something that naturally reveals itself when we stop trying to be anything other than what we already are. The good news is that we can transcend this trap. The first step is to recognize how the more mentality has influenced our spiritual journey. We must question our motivations. Are we practicing to truly know ourselves, or are we feeding an image of ourselves as spiritual beings? Instead of seeking more, we can cultivate an attitude of openness and receptivity. This means being willing to find the divine in everyday experiences and seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. It means practicing non-doing, allowing life's innate wisdom to manifest through us. Remember, the spiritual path is not a climb to the top of the mountain, but a deep dive into the core of our being. It is not about reaching a special state, but about recognizing the sacredness inherent in every moment of existence. As we free ourselves from the compulsion for more, we create space for a more authentic way of being, one that is aligned with our true nature. It is in this space of stillness and acceptance that the deepest revelations occur. The neglected present, the gateway to expanded consciousness. On the spiritual journey, the present moment is often described as the gateway to expanded consciousness. Paradoxically, it is also the most neglected aspect of our lives. While we seek elevated states of consciousness or transcendent experiences, we often lose sight of the miracle that is the here and now. Spiritual masters from various traditions have emphasized the importance of presence, Eckhart Tolle reminds us that the realization of the present moment is the realization of being. The Buddha taught that full attention to the present is the path to liberation. Yet, our conditioned minds constantly pull us away, either into the past, filled with memories and regrets, or into the future, filled with hopes and fears. This escape from the present is one of the greatest obstacles to genuine self-knowledge. When we are not present, we miss the opportunity to observe our mental patterns, our emotional reactions, and the nature of our thoughts. It is only in the present that we can truly know ourselves, because it is here that our true nature is revealed. The practice of presence is not just another spiritual technique to add to our collection. It is an invitation to a fundamental shift in how we relate to life. It is a call to awaken from the dream of the past and future and recognize the vibrancy and fullness of the now. When we practice presence, we begin to realize that many of our spiritual pursuits are, in fact, subtle ways of avoiding the present moment. We seek extraordinary experiences because we fail to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. We long for altered states of consciousness because we do not recognize the depth of the consciousness that is already available here and now. The present is the only moment where spiritual transformation can occur. It is here that we can observe and release the conditioning that limits us. It is here that we can directly experience our true nature, beyond the mental constructs of the ego. But how can we cultivate this presence in a world that constantly pulls us away from the moment? The answer lies in the consistent and compassionate practice of mindfulness. This means repeatedly bringing our awareness back to the here and now, whether through observing the breath, sensing the body, or simply noticing what is present in our immediate experience. As we practice presence, we begin to notice subtle yet profound changes. Life takes on a quality of vibrancy and immediacy. Colors appear more vivid, sounds clearer, sensations more intense. We start to perceive the interconnectedness of all things, the underlying unity beneath the apparent diversity of existence. This practice also leads us to a deeper self-knowledge. By observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we begin to see through the stories we tell ourselves. We realize that we are not our thoughts or emotions, but the awareness that observes them. This realization is the essence of true self-knowledge. Remember, the present is not just a philosophical concept, but an experiential reality. It is the portal through which we can access deeper dimensions of our existence. Every moment is an opportunity to awaken, to recognize our true nature beyond the limitations of the ego. As we open ourselves to the fullness of the present, we discover that what we have been searching for so desperately, peace, joy, fulfillment, is already here. It is not something to be attained in the future, but a reality to be recognized now. The present is, truly, the greatest gift we can give ourselves on our spiritual journey. The wisdom of non-seeking, the path of surrender. In spiritual tradition, there is a profound principle known as wu-wei, the art of non-action or effortless flow. This concept does not imply passivity, but rather acting in harmony with the fundamental nature of existence. When we apply this principle to our spiritual search, we discover something revolutionary. True wisdom arises when we stop seeking. Sacred texts have long taught us that the kingdom of heaven is within us. The truth we seek is not hidden in some distant place, but rests at the core of our being. It is like the sun, always present, even when obscured by clouds. Our relentless searching is like those clouds, obscuring the light that already shines naturally. When we practice non-seeking, something extraordinary happens. Instead of trying to reach elevated states of consciousness, we allow our essential nature to reveal itself. It is like stopping the agitation of a lake and letting the mud settle naturally, revealing the clarity that has always been there. This approach represents a radical shift in our spiritual journey. Instead of adding more practices, techniques, or knowledge, we begin to let go. We release our expectations of what enlightenment should be. We release our need for control. We even release our identity as spiritual seekers. The paradox is that the more we surrender, the more we discover. This surrender is not a defeated resignation, but a profound act of trust in the inherent wisdom of life. It is the recognition that the same intelligence that makes your heart beat, that transforms seeds into flowers, that keeps the stars in their orbits, can also guide your spiritual evolution. In practice, non-seeking manifests as a deep acceptance of the present moment. There is no need to change anything, to attain anything, to become anything. There's only the recognition of what already is. This acceptance does not exclude action. Rather, action arises naturally from the wisdom of the moment, not from the ego's desire. When we stop seeking, we begin to notice how much of our suffering comes from resisting what is. We resist our emotions, our thoughts, and the circumstances of life. This resistance creates constant tension, an internal noise that prevents us from hearing the silent voice of inner wisdom. Non-seeking invites us into a different kind of knowing, not the intellectual knowledge we accumulate, but the direct wisdom that arises from lived experience. It is like the difference between reading about the taste of a fruit and actually tasting it. This path requires courage. There is a deep fear that if we stop seeking, we will become stagnant. But the truth is the opposite. When we let go of control, we create space for the natural intelligence of life to operate through us. Growth happens not because we force it, but because expansion and evolution are the fundamental nature of consciousness. The practice of non-seeking also leads us into a more authentic relationship with our spirituality. We are no longer trying to fit into a predetermined model of what a spiritual being should be. Instead, we allow our unique expression of divinity to unfold naturally. This is the true meaning of self-knowledge, not the accumulation of information about the self, but the gradual unveiling of who we truly are when we stop trying to be something else. It is like removing layers of paint from an ancient masterpiece, revealing the original beauty that has always been there. As we practice non-seeking, we discover that life becomes lighter and more graceful, not because external circumstances necessarily change, but because our relationship with them transforms. We find a peace that does not depend on conditions, a joy that arises naturally from the simple fact of existence. Silence and revelation, the gateway to inner truth. On the spiritual path, silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a state of being, a portal to deeper dimensions of consciousness. When we truly quiet ourselves, not just externally but internally, we begin to access levels of wisdom that transcend intellectual knowledge. Mystics from all traditions speak of this sacred silence. It is within silence that the veils of illusion begin to dissolve. Like dust settling in a quiet room when our mind becomes still, the truth of who we are naturally rises to the surface. It is not something we need to create or attain. It is something that reveals itself when we stop interfering. This inner silence has a different quality from mere physical quietness. It is a state of total receptivity where our awareness is fully open and alert, without seeking or rejecting any experience. In this space, the deepest revelations occur spontaneously. Imagine your consciousness as an ocean. On the surface, there are constant waves of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. But as we descend into the depths, we find a natural stillness, a peace that does not depend on external conditions. It is in these depths that our true nature resides. Silence teaches us that we do not need to seek answers. We simply need to create the space for them to emerge. When we stop filling every moment with mental activity, when we allow pauses in our constant internal narrative, something extraordinary happens. Life's innate wisdom begins to manifest through us. This practice of silence goes beyond formal meditation. It is an invitation to bring moments of conscious quietude into our daily lives. It can be found in the pause between breaths, in the space between thoughts, or simply in the moments when we choose not to fill the void with distractions. As we cultivate this silence, we begin to see how much of our spiritual seeking is fueled by mental noise, concepts, theories, expectations. Silence allows us to see through these mental constructions and directly touch the non-conceptual reality of our existence. In silence, we discover that many of the questions that trouble us dissolve naturally, not because we have found answers, but because we realize that the questions themselves arose from a limited understanding of who we are. It is like waking up from a dream and seeing that the problems that seemed so real in the dream have no substance in waking reality. Silence also reveals the illusory nature of many of our pursuits. We realize that we have been looking in the wrong place, searching outward when the truth was within, seeking in the future what is already present now. The practice of silence teaches us a different way of knowing, not through the accumulation of information, but through the awakening of direct intuition. It is a knowledge that comes from being, not from thinking. A knowledge that transforms not just our understanding, but our very way of existing in the world. When we regularly inhabit this silence, a new quality of presence begins to permeate our lives. Our actions become more fluid, more aligned with the natural intelligence of the universe. Our understanding deepens, not through effort, but through relaxing into the awareness that is always present. Applying non-seeking in daily life. The practice of conscious presence. True spiritual transformation does not happen only during meditation or in retreats. It manifests in the fabric of our daily lives. It is in the way we wash the dishes, in how we relate to others, in how we respond to daily challenges that our spiritual understanding is truly tested and integrated. The principle of non-seeking can be applied in every moment of our existence. When we wake up in the morning, instead of immediately projecting ourselves into the future with worries and plans, we can simply be present. Feel the breath, observe the sensations in the body, embrace the moment exactly as it is. In interactions with others, non-seeking manifests as a quality of total presence. We are not trying to change the other person. We are not seeking approval or trying to prove something. There is only the simplicity of an authentic encounter, heart to heart. This presence profoundly transforms our relationships. At work, even amid deadlines and demands, we can maintain an anchor in present awareness. It is not about ignoring responsibilities, but about fulfilling them from a place of clarity and presence, rather than anxiety and pressure. Every task becomes an opportunity to practice mindfulness. When challenging emotions arise, anger, fear, sadness, non-seeking invites us to respond differently. Instead of immediately trying to change or overcome these emotions, we allow them to exist in our awareness. We observe without judgment, without trying to control the experience. This radical acceptance often leads to a natural and profound transformation. In moments of conflict or stress, we can practice what Zen masters call beginner's mind, an attitude of openness and not knowing. Instead of reacting automatically based on old patterns, we create a space of awareness where new possibilities can emerge. This practice also extends to seemingly mundane moments. When we are in traffic, shopping, or waiting in line, we can use these moments as opportunities to awaken. Instead of resisting or trying to escape these situations, we fully immerse ourselves in the present experience. A powerful tool is what we might call conscious pauses, moments throughout the day when we deliberately stop and reconnect with our inner presence. It could be when hearing a bell, passing through a doorway, or receiving a phone notification. These moments become portals for awakening. In our relationship with the body, non-seeking manifests as deep and respectful listening. Instead of imposing ideas about how we should feel or look, we learn to honor the body's innate wisdom. This listening naturally guides us toward healthier and more harmonious habits. In our formal spiritual practice, whether meditation, prayer, or contemplation, we apply the same principle. We are not trying to reach special states or extraordinary experiences. There is only the simple act of being present, allowing the practice to unfold naturally. A crucial aspect is cultivating self-compassion in this process. There will be moments when we find ourselves seeking, resisting, or trying to control. Instead of judging ourselves, we recognize that this too is part of the journey. This self-compassion is essential for a sustainable practice. As we integrate non-seeking into our daily lives, we begin to notice subtle yet profound changes. There is more space in our experience, more lightness in our being. Situations that once caused intense stress are met with greater equanimity. Our response to life becomes more fluid and natural. This practice also helps us recognize the sacredness of the ordinary. We realize that we do not need special circumstances to touch the divine. It is present in every breath, every step, every moment of awareness. Daily life becomes the very field of our spiritual realization. Remember, the practice of non-seeking is not about achieving an ideal state or becoming a different person. It is about awakening to the wholeness that is already present in every moment. about recognizing the beauty and depth of life exactly as it is. Transformation and growth. The natural awakening of consciousness. On the journey of self-knowledge and spiritual development, there is a paradoxical truth. True transformation does not happen through effortful change, but by allowing our essential nature to unfold naturally. It is like a flower that does not struggle to bloom, it simply follows the natural rhythm of its growth. When we let go of the endless search and open ourselves to our true nature, we discover that consciousness has its own evolutionary intelligence. Just as a river naturally finds its way to the ocean, our awareness naturally expands toward its divine source. This transformation manifests in subtle yet profound ways. We notice a greater ability to remain centered amid challenges. Our perception expands, allowing us to see beyond surface appearances and touch the sacred essence of life. Limiting patterns that once imprisoned us begin to dissolve naturally in the light of awakened consciousness. Authentic spiritual growth is not linear, it moves in spirals, sometimes revisiting old issues, but always from a higher perspective of understanding. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for deeper awakening. Every obstacle an invitation to expand our awareness. As we open ourselves to this natural transformation, we realize that we do not need to do spiritual work. We simply need to create the conditions for it to unfold by itself. It is like preparing the soil for a seed. Once the conditions are right, growth happens naturally. This process of transformation has no end. It is an infinite unfolding of possibilities, an eternal dance between the known and the unknown. Each moment of awakening reveals new horizons of consciousness, new depths of understanding. True spiritual growth does not separate us from the world. It connects us more deeply with all of life. We develop a heightened sensitivity to the interconnectedness of all things, a natural compassion that arises from recognizing our fundamental unity with existence. This is the beauty of the authentic spiritual path. It leads us back to our original nature, revealing the perfection that has always been present. It is not about becoming something different, but about awakening to who we truly are. As we reach the end of this journey of reflection, we realize that the true spiritual path is not about reaching a distant destination, but about awakening to the wholeness that is already present in every moment. Non-seeking, inner silence, and conscious presence, all these practices invite us to a new way of being, a new way of seeing and experiencing life. This new perspective is not something we need to attain or acquire. It is a return to our essential nature, a recognition of the truth that has always been within us. It is like opening our eyes after a long sleep and seeing the world with renewed clarity. From this moment forward, you have the opportunity to embark on a transformative journey. It is not a journey that takes you away from yourself, but one that brings you back to your true home, the here and now. I invite you to embrace this wisdom in your daily life. Allow yourself to let go of the endless search. Open yourself to the revealing silence. Cultivate presence in every moment. Let your true nature blossom naturally. Remember, you already are everything you seek to become. Peace, joy, wholeness, all of it is already present in your deepest being. Your journey now is simply to recognize and embody this truth. May each step you take be an awakening to the beauty and mystery of life unfolding in every instant.